The first day of snow. It was early November when the forecast first hinted at snow. The weather reports had been predicting a cold front for days, and by the time we awoke that morning, the world outside had changed. It was the first day of snow that year, and it felt like the start of something magical, an event that would turn the ordinary into something extraordinary. The scent of winter in the air, the crisp chill that whispered through the trees, and the promise of soft, powdery snowflakes all set the stage for a day that would stay with me for a long time. Waking up to winter. That morning, I woke up to an unusual silence. The hum of the city, usually a constant presence in my life, seemed to have faded. As I opened my eyes, I saw the faint light of the early morning seeping through the curtains. It was still too early for the usual bustle, but there was something different about the light, softer, colder, almost as if the world had been painted with a fresh layer of frost. I could hear the wind outside, a quiet whistle that carried a promise. I pulled the covers tighter around me and closed my eyes for just a few more minutes, savoring the warmth. But the thought of what might be waiting outside kept pulling me out of my cozy cocoon. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up, the chill of the hardwood floor creeping up my bare feet. As I opened the window to let in the fresh, cool air, I was met with a sight that took my breath away. Snowflakes were falling softly from the sky, swirling in the wind, each one delicate and unique. The world outside was already beginning to transform. The grass, the trees, even the rooftops, everything was covered in a thin blanket of white. It wasn't a heavy snow yet, but it was enough to coat the world in a soft, serene layer. The air smelled crisp and clean, and the sight of the snow made the world seem quieter, slower, more peaceful. I couldn't help but smile. Snow had always had this magic about it, and it was on days like this that I remembered why I loved the winter. Stepping into a winter wonderland, I quickly got dressed in layers, pulling on my warmest sweater, thick socks, and a coat I had been waiting to wear all year. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit my face, sharp and invigorating. I took a deep breath, and the icy air filled my lungs, waking me up more than any cup of coffee could have. The snow was still falling steadily, but not heavily, just enough to coat everything in a fine dusting. The streets were quieter than usual. People who would typically be rushing to work or school seemed to have slowed down, caught in the wonder of the first snow. I looked around, seeing the snowflakes catch on the tree branches, coating them in a fine dust of white. The sound of my footsteps crunching in the snow was oddly comforting, a rhythmic, soft echo that felt like the world was telling me to slow down and take it all in. I wasn't the only one outside, of course. A few of my neighbors had already ventured out, some shoveling their driveways, others simply standing in their yards, looking up at the sky as if they were trying to capture the magic of the moment. A few children had appeared in the streets, bundled up in puffy coats and scarves, their laughter ringing out as they tossed snowballs at each other. The world seemed different with the snow. It was as though the normal, everyday things, cars, houses, lampposts, were all transformed. The world had a softness to it now, and even the harshest parts of the city seemed more inviting, less chaotic. The quiet beauty of snow. I decided to take a walk, to lose myself in the winter landscape. As I walked down the street, I felt as though I was in a different world altogether. The snow was falling more heavily now, swirling around me, clinging to my hair and eyelashes. There was something so peaceful about the snow, something that made everything feel calmer. The usual sounds of the city were muffled, absorbed by the blanket of snow that was slowly covering the streets. I passed by the park, which was quickly being transformed into a winter wonderland. The trees, once bare and skeletal, now had branches weighed down with snow, their trunks dusted in white. The playground that had been full of children in the summer now stood still and empty, the swings moving gently with the wind, as if waiting for someone to come and play. The benches, usually so worn and weathered, looked new again, covered in snow, pristine and untouched. I walked around the park, marveling at the way the snow seemed to bring everything to life in a new way. The world was still and calm, but it wasn't lifeless. It was full of subtle beauty, each snowflake a work of art. The way the snow clung to the branches, the way it glistened in the low light of the morning. The contrast between the bright white snow and the deep green of the pine trees was stunning. The sky, once a pale blue, had turned a soft gray, and the clouds seemed heavy with more snow. The first snowball. As I continued my walk, I noticed a group of kids gathering by the edge of the park, giggling and calling out to each other. They were building a snow fort, their hands moving quickly as they packed the snow into tight, firm balls. Before I knew it, one of them turned to me and shouted, "Hey you, want to join in?" I laughed, feeling a little self-conscious but also excited at the idea. "I'm not sure if I remember how to build a snow fort," I said, grinning. "Nonsense," the kid shouted back. "You just have to make the snowballs and stack them. It's easy." Before I could respond, I found myself ducking as a snowball flew through the air, hitting a tree just beside me. The kids erupted into laughter, and one of them, a girl with pigtails, challenged me with a smile. "If you're going to stand there, you might as well help defend the fort." I grinned and took a few steps back, looking for a snowball to throw. The snow was perfect, fluffy and soft, but sticky enough to form into a tight, round ball. I quickly packed one in my hands, and before I could think twice, I launched it at the fort. It hit the side of the snow wall with a soft thud, and the kids cheered. It was then that I realized snow had a way of bringing out the child in all of us. It was a break from reality, a chance to let go of our adult worries and embrace the joy of simple things. The laughter, the playful energy, the excitement of the first snow, these were the moments that made the season special. A hot cup of cocoa. After a while, I said goodbye to the kids and continued my walk, my clothes now wet from the snowball fight. The streets were now fully covered in snow, the sidewalks and roads blanketed in white, the cars parked along the sides of the road dusted with a thin layer of snow. The world felt softer, quieter, and more peaceful. I decided to head back home, where a warm drink and the comfort of my house awaited. The snow continued to fall, though it was now a gentle flurry. By the time I arrived home, the streets had already been cleared, and the world outside looked even more magical. Inside, I peeled off my wet clothes and sank into a cozy chair by the window, watching the snow continue to fall in soft flakes. There was something so comforting about the snow, something that made everything feel peaceful and still. I made myself a cup of hot cocoa, the warmth of the mug comforting against my hands. I sat there, sipping my cocoa and gazing out the window. The snow was still falling, and it seemed as though the world had stopped for a moment. The hustle and bustle of everyday life were paused, and all that remained was the quiet beauty of the snow-covered world outside. The first day of snow was always special, a day of new beginnings, of hope and renewal. It was a reminder that no matter how much time passed, the world could still surprise us, could still bring us moments of joy and wonder. As I sat there, wrapped in the warmth of my home, I couldn't help but smile. The first snow had come, and it had transformed everything, even if just for a day.